Across the city and South Cambridgeshire.
Cambridge 105 Radio.
Hello and welcome to Centuries of Sound on Cambridge 105 Radio. This is the show where we take a deep dive into the older history of recorded sound. Well, that's what we usually do. Today we've got a bit of a different thing. We're going to have a look at the oldest sounds that we can hear. So later on in the show, I'll be speaking to Simon O'Dwyer from Ancient Music Ireland about his reconstructions of Bronze Age instruments. But first, let's head to some ancient civilizations of the Near East. My first choice is a reconstruction of an ancient Egyptian love song by Peter Pringle. The words here are taken from a papyrus scroll from around 1500 BC, and the instrument is a reconstruction of a 22-string arched harp made of cedar and animal skin. The melody is Peter's own invention, as the ancient Egyptians have left us with no written notation.
Say it, say it, nun se naus. Pitris mi se podat hai, Pitris mi se podat hai. Hat rannapet nefert, hat rannapet nefert. Shespatikart wabchet ina Anat irati gamma Beinari sapats madawat Binus khanau emhaw. Say it, say it, nun se navis. Nefer, nefer harnab. Katten heb wabchet kubi. Katten heb wabchet kubi. Hastud ma'ashnawis. Gabis harit nawab Dubawis miseshina Bedesh behats mirauti horib.
That was Peter Pringle with a reconstruction of an ancient Egyptian love song. An example of musical notation that we do perhaps have from the ancient world is the original transcription of the Torah, which includes a series of accents which have been the subject of a great deal of debate. Susan Haig Ventura has proposed that these accents are in fact symbols representing musical tones. So here, performed by a choir, is the melody of Psalm 19 from around 2000 BC.
Yehovah
That was a reconstruction of the 3,000-year-old melody of Psalm 19. When I was researching this ancient music, one name I kept coming across was Michael Levy, who plays a reconstruction of the ancient lyre and puts together interpretations of the earliest musical notation. The first real body of notation we have is from the ancient Greeks, so here's an example of some of Michael's reconstructions of their music. That was Michael Levy with a reconstruction of some ancient Greek music. Now let's shift our attention across to Ireland. We're going to hear a fair amount about these instruments in a moment, but just to get a flavour of it, here's John Kenny playing a replica of an Iron Age Celtic horn used in warfare.
My name is Simon O'Dwyer and I'm co-founder along with Maria O'Dwyer of ancientmusicireland.com. We specialise in examining, exploring, reproducing and playing reproductions of ancient and prehistoric musical instruments, mainly from Ireland and Britain.
The first part of that, the kind of archaeological side of that, how do you go about?
The instruments, we look at the ones, they're in various museums around around Ireland and Britain, and we'll go in and we'll get permission to examine an instrument in detail and weigh it and work out what it's made of and how it was made, and then we'll go ahead and see can we make a reproduction as accurately as possible to the original, and then we explore its musical possibilities and see what we can learn from it, and then we publish the results.
And as far as working that out, it's to do with your knowledge of the techniques they had available at the different stages of history, is that right?
Well, you can get great insight because if you can work out what place the instrument fulfilled in its own time, then you can get a picture, an audio picture of what may have been going on at that time. You can never get the story, but you can get hints of it, you know. And it's a very interesting way of doing it because music archaeology it's the newest of the archaeological disciplines. It's the most recently explored. And yet it's a really important one because music plays such a huge part in humanity.
Every instrument, I imagine, you have to think about how the person was using it at the time as well. Is that right?
Yeah. What they were playing. Well, you never know exactly what they were playing, but you can work out how they played them. And sounds that they make can give you hints as to what situations they played them in. And if you look at the ancient instruments, there's a whole variety of things that they were used for, you know. I mean, you could have ceremony, you could have political situations, royal situations, war, healing, you know, they're all hunting, they're all in there.
Is the earliest one you have a kind of pipe, a kind of flute, is that right?
The earliest Irish instrument, well, from Ireland, is a set of 6 wooden pipes.
Okay, and they're meant to be played together, or at the same, one by one?
They're tuned pipes,
okay.
And they play a scale.
So essentially something like pan pipes, that kind of thing.
Well, a pan pipe, you blow across the top of the pipe.
Okay.
To create your music, whereas these ones you blow into a fipple. Each pipe is tuned to one note. It's like an organ, except that they're much, much, much older. They're 4,150 years old.
So let's hear Simon playing these fipple pipes.
The way it worked was that you had people bringing technology into Ireland, and the people who brought the metal were the beaker people, but they didn't populate Ireland as such. They came and brought the technology to the people who were already here.
Right.
So if you want to trace the origin of people in Ireland, you go back to about 10,000 years ago when when our ancestors came in at the end of the Ice Age. But there's recent evidence of people being in Ireland up as much as 33,000 years ago. Yeah, they found bones with knife marks on them, and an archaeologist in County Clare, and she was able to have them dated at 33,000 years. So they would have been living on the ice during the Ice Age. Yeah, we've no instruments from then, but there are instruments in Europe from that time.
I think some bone flutes I've seen.
Flutes and whistles, yeah, from about 40,000 years ago in Germany, and 35,000 years ago in France. And there's a conch, a seashell trumpet from France, which is 17,000 years old. And I'm sure you heard there the last few days they've been talking about whistles from North Israel, which are 12,000 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, they've only just been discovered. So they're trying to understand how they work.
So let's hear an example of an ancient bone flute. This is Luben Dimirovsky. This is a Neanderthal bone flute. I suppose from an archaeological point of view, things like stringed instruments or drums would be less recognisable, less easily found than flutes, which are carved. Do you think that's why these are the earliest ones we're finding?
It could be, but, they had bows and arrows. And a bow and arrow, a bow with a string on it, is the origin of all stringed instruments.
Oh, right.
And if you have a bow and a stick and you just tap the string with the stick, that's a bow harp. That's the origin of all stringed instruments. Yeah, and they still play those in Africa. Now we don't know how far back they go. They could go back even further.
I've been checking out a few things. There's a guy called Michael Levy. He's been reconstructing ancient lyres.
Yes, I know. I met him at a conference in Berlin, Germany. He was concentrating on the Mesopotamian, the lyre.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Yeah, the one with the golden head on it,
mm-hmm.
The lion's head, I think, on it.
And it has a very different tuning to modern lyres, medieval
yes.
lyres. I don't think there's such thing as a modern lyre, is there?
Yeah. Well, that's about 4,500 years old, that one. I have a pair of silver pipes from the same time, from Ur. Mouth pipes, played with reeds, like the origins of, say, bagpipes.
So those would have been played together, possibly? I guess there's no evidence to know, really, is there?
They both come from Ur at the same time, so it is quite likely they were played together. Yeah,
it does seem likely. Yeah.
But stringed instruments in Europe, the oldest stringed instrument, actual bit of a stringed instrument in Europe, is from Scotland.
Really?
Yeah, it's called the Skye Bridge. It's the bridge of a lyre.
Okay.
And it was found in a cave in a place called High Pastures in the Isle of Skye 10 years ago. Yeah, that's 500 BC.
Ah. How far do you think we can go to reconstructing the music that was played on these? What kind of ways can we do that? I think was the earliest notated sounds I've seen is this Hurry and Hymn on this lyre. They have a tablet from I think 1,300. Hurrying, where are they? Yeah, I think that's modern day Turkey. It's that part
right,
of the world.
I know about that piece of music. Yeah.
So let's hear the Hurry and Hymn. as played by Michael Levy on a reconstructed ancient lyre. Notes are put together, we can get an idea about the tuning, and then that can give an idea about the kind of natural harmonies and kind of natural songs that could be made from it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but of course the Wicklow pipes, which are the 6 wooden pipes from County Wicklow that are 4,150 years old, they're complete, and each pipe has its own note.
Okay.
So we have an exact reproduction which was made in England actually by Peter Holmes, but we put the originals. They don't have any tone generator on the pipes. The tone generators were missing or gone or corroded or rotten, gone. You know, but each pipe has a socket on the end of it,
right?
So there's something fitted onto it. So we know that there was some type of tone generator, like a fipple that you'd find on a whistle, you know, or an organ pipe, went onto them. So therefore we know, and we got fipples made by a low whistle maker in County Clare, but they're modern. We designed them specially to bring out the very best note out of each of the pipes that we have. So it's sort of a combination of the original dimensions of the pipes made from new wood, the same wood as the originals, and these ultra-modern plastic fipples, which are, they're printed. They're designed in a computer and they're printed. But those 6 pipes give us the scale of the early Bronze Age, a scale, an accurate scale. And I can play modern tunes on them.
And how does it compare to the scale we would have now on a similar instrument? Is it similar or is it quite different?
The only difference is that there's 7 notes in the octave in the scale rather than 8 today. the F is missing. And interestingly enough, the A, today A is 440 hertz. Mm-hmm. That's its tuning. The tuning on the A in the fiddle pipes is 439.
Okay.
So it's pretty much the same.
Okay, very similar. That's interesting. Does that mean that this is an underlying structure which is there in nature, or does that mean, or there in our heads at least, or does that mean that it's something that's just been passed down for thousands of years?
Yeah, well, that's the question. You see, the fact that these fiddle pipes, they're really complex. They were drilled out, using a drill, and over 4,000 years ago, that's pretty good, and they're very accurate, and they can't have just been invented at that time. They must have been part of a long tradition, which was already in existence when they were being made, because they're complex. So therefore, it could have been evolvement. Or it could have been the natural sounds that we like to hear, which were really only written down for the first time scientifically by the Greeks. 4th, 5th century BC. They wrote them down. But the Irish had them already nailed in the tuning of the pipes 1,500 years earlier.
It's when we look at that. There's that gap between the Greeks and the Gregorian chants, maybe of nearly 1,000 years of nothing written down in terms of music. So it's interesting that those kind of things were passed down generation by generation. It's the only way really that could be done, I think.
It's like the Irish traditional music today. It's still passed on from player to player. Even though it's written down now, but it wasn't for a long, long time. It was player to player would pass down the tunes,
Because when I look at the early recordings, going back to the Victorian times, there's a change when people are able to listen to music on record. The way that everything stops being so individual and local, and people start imitating other things that they're hearing on records. You can really feel that happening year by year. Around early 1900s, about maybe around 1910, you can hear.
Yeah, that's a great point. That happened in the tradition because a lot of Irish musicians at the beginning of the 20th century went to America, and in America they had recording facilities available to them there, and they made 78s and wax cylinders, and because of that, the tradition at that time was frozen in recordings. Whereas if you come to Ireland now, even today, you go around Ireland and you go into a pub in Galway and there's 6 musicians there, local musicians, and they're playing tunes in a particular style. And then you go up to Sligo and they're playing them in a different style, or up to Donegal or down to Kerry or across to the east. Wherever you go, you might hear the same tune being played, but it's in the local style, the local way. And then you can get like a group of musicians from around the country sitting together, and they'll be sharing styles with each other.
So it's alive, it's a living thing, isn't it?
Very much so. Yeah.
Let's talk about the Bronze Age. We didn't talk about those yet. So many of the instruments that I can see you working with are Bronze Age instruments. Does that mean they're made of bronze as well?
Yeah.
Is that right?
They're made of cast bronze.
Right, okay.
They're cast instruments, yeah.
So how far do those date back, do we think?
The oldest ones, as far as we know, possibly somewhere around 1200 BC. It could be a bit earlier, but we think it's around, and it goes ahead up to about 700 BC. So that's the late Bronze Age.
It's an interesting step to take, because it must have been a huge amount of effort and trouble to be making those instruments at the time.
Yes.
Making the first one. Who put together the first one? That must have been quite an innovator.
Well, it would have been a pair.
Right, okay.
They come in pairs, and this is the latest research we're doing at the moment, because they are derived from cattle horns.
Right, okay. That's a natural step. Okay, I can see that.
Yeah, but a pair are not the same. The two instruments are not the same. One of them is played inside, side blown, and the other is played at the end with an extension piece onto it. Okay. So one of them is essentially, because it's conical along its full length, is a horn, where the other one, because it has a cylindrical aspect added on, is a trumpet. But they are a pair. And it's only recently that the proposition has been put forward that they might represent male and female. Oh. So the side blow horn is female, and the end blown trumpet is male. Okay. And if you look at a reason for that, in pre-Christian Ireland, the two main deities of the time were the sun god, who was male, and the earth goddess, who was female. And they were brought together for the inauguration of a king. The king would represent the sun god, and then he would be brought together with the earth, with the world, who was the female, the earth goddess. And we know that horns and trumpets were played for the inauguration of kings, of royalty. So the possibility is that the horns and trumpets were played to represent the voices of the god and the goddess, which is why they're male and female. And also that might explain it might explain why there were so much effort went into making them, because they involved the cutting edge of bronze casting technology in the world at the time, and they were so good that we still can't match how good those makers were. Really? We're trying to catch up with them. And the other thing is that we believe that they are designed almost definitely to allow for the playing of tone alteration and instrumental overtone. Okay. Now, when you play instrumental overtone on them, it gives them the sound a really ethereal quality, a really otherworld quality. So we believe that they were played to be the voices of the god and the goddess at ceremony. We think that was their primary function. But also we think that they were played in other situations. They would have accompanied other instruments at the time, because particularly the big ones from the south of Ireland, the big drones, the deep drones, they make them a wonderful accompaniment to the Irish tradition, to the Irish melody tradition. You know, like the way the drone on uilleann pipes accompanies the tune on the chanter.
Let's have a listen to the awe-inspiring sound of these two Iron Age horns being played together. There must not have been many of these if it was so difficult to make them in such a high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there are over 100 in Ireland surviving.
Wow. Okay.
And that's 40% of the entire world population of metal wind instruments from the Bronze Age.
40%.
Actually, from antiquity. And there's a couple from Britain. So you have one in Scotland, and you have one which is lost from Sussex. That's in the Bronze Age. But, and that would make you think that, that must have been thousands of them at the time. But we don't think so. We think that there might have been a pair made specifically to celebrate the inauguration of a king. So they would have been made for one of the kingdoms. But of course Ireland and Britain were divided up into lots of small kingdoms.
One thing we haven't really talked about is drums. Have there been kind of drums found around the same time, or is that something that has a different function, perhaps?
No. We have no evidence. There's no actual drums surviving.
Okay.
The oldest drums, the oldest images of drums go back to the middle of the 19th century. And there are a couple of square frame drums in the National Museum in Dublin, which I think are 18th century. Other than that, no. But what's interesting about the drum is that the Irish drum, which we call the bodhrán, is a frame drum. So it's very simple. It's just a frame with the skin on one side. But what's interesting about it is that we play it sideways. And you can either play it with the back of the hand, swinging the hand so you get a momentum, or you can play it with a stick, a one-end or two-ended stick, swinging it. And it's the way of swinging the hand to give you the rhythm that is the basis for traditional Irish music. The jig and the reel, the hornpipe, the mazurka, they all have a particular swinging rhythm in the music, which makes Irish music so popular around the world, because it's a really catchy sort of rhythm, and that is it may be derived from the way that the bodhrán is, and of course bones, the way bodhrán and a pair of bones are played, that it is so distinctive in the music that may be an indication that bodhráns, that frame drums, were around a long time ago, but we have no proof. Yeah. And of course, what we do, being, because we are dependent on recognition by the academic world, we can't afford to be romantic, Our work is entirely based on actual archaeology and, legends and pure research as much as possible.
Tempting to imagine that things have been around in the same form for a long time, but things do change all the time. We're talking about thousands of years.
Yeah, we can do that in composition. I mean, we compose our music on the instruments, and we're not saying that our music is what they played, because we have no idea. But we are saying that you can compose lots of different things on them, and that fires up the imagination. And the more complex you compose now, they were clearly composing far more complex at the time, because they had living traditions where families were playing for years and years and hundreds of years and thousands of years. So they weren't just, messing around. They were playing music every bit as serious and complex as it is today.
Let's have a listen to some of these instruments being played together. should ask you before we finish about the sound library that you're launching.
Yeah, well, we're very excited about this. This was Maria's idea when we were in the middle of lockdown, because we live in this box canyon here in Connemara in the west of Ireland. And when we went into lockdown, you know, on the 13th of March 2020, and we turned the house into the SS Cocoon. We went sailing, and our valley became Ponytail Valley, and we sailed through Ponytail Valley for 2 years in isolation. And while we were here, we upgraded the website, and we got an engineer, a Spanish engineer, who was living up in Fermanagh at the time, up in the north. He came down for 2 days, and I played 29 instruments over the 2 days. He recorded them, and I was pretty sore after it for a week, because I did a lot of playing, and we did 150 samples, and you know, to make a sound library, and that's coming out now very soon. So it's got now the details, the technological end of it, I'm not great on, but it's got we used raw WAV files, and it's become a contact instrument. You know, it means you can put it onto a keyboard, and each sample is stretched for an octave either side of the note, and it's for use in gaming music and film music and composition. So that'll be on the market in this September coming, and we're very excited about it, because it's quite new. You know, there isn't really much in the sample market to do with ancient instruments and their sounds. Sure. And the sounds are so distinctive, and in most cases they're so powerful. I mean, that is one thing about the ancient instruments. The sounds that they make are just amazingly powerful and evocative. And that's because of the science that was involved in the making of them. I mean, there's a whole world of research still to be done here as to how instruments were originally designed and made to be so musically powerful and evocative in a human way.
It's very exciting, opening up that world that we thought lost to us, and we can now be there in sound.
Well, we can get a flavour of it. I mean, there's only so far you can go, but it is a living window onto a huge, important part of our cultural past, you know, from a musical point of view, which, and the instruments, they say very clearly, they say it was way richer than, you know, people give account for it now. It was very rich and very complex, and every bit as human as it is now. The sound library, it's called Paleosonic.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be on your website, which is at ancientmusicIreland.com, is that right?
And there'll also be paleosonic.com.
Paleosonic.com. Thank you, Simon, for joining me today. I'm looking forward to checking out the site when it's launched. Let's hear an art exhibition which uses some of these sounds. We haven't really heard many flutes today. Let's rectify that. This is Lecive Nastroje. It's an overtone flute with agate. That was a reconstruction of an ancient flute by Lecive Nastroje. Here's another maker of ancient flutes, Winnie Clement, playing a Moldavian kaval. That was Winnie Clement playing a reconstruction of a Moldavian kaval. You've been listening to Centuries of Sound on Cambridge 105 Radio. If you'd like to find out more about the show and the mixes I'm making for every year of recorded sound, come to centuriesofsound.com. And if you want to get in touch, you can email me at james@centuriesofsound.com. And you can find Simon O'Dwyer's site at ancientmusicireland.com. Let's finish up today with another bit of ancient lyre. This one from the Tartessian civilization in what is now southern Spain in around 500 BC, played by Jirko Lorca. Thanks for joining me today. Good night.